Hi Stampers, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Today we're going to be playing around with a new set out of the holiday catalog. We're going to be using Sip Sip Hooray. This is in our new holiday catalog that went live last week. It comes with a coordinating set of dies. You have to remember that these are bundled together the first time they ever appear in a catalog. So even if this carries over and shows up in our annual catalog, you can only save the 10% now. And one of the nice things about this card is it's super easy. And one of the reasons it's super easy is I started out with our pre-made card bases. In our Stampin' Up! Catalog, we have these two different versions of pre-scored card bases and then a matching envelope. So I'm able to just choose one of these card bases that already has the gold foil on it and then the coordinating envelope that goes with it. So a lot of this work's already done for me because as you can see in my card, it looks like I layered, but I actually didn't. This is put directly right onto our surface. So all you do is you take these pre-scored pieces and you fold it in half and burnish it. And then I'm going to be able to work directly on the surface. There's only a little bit of stamping in this one. I stamped the Hooray onto a little strip that's going to go across the front. Now again, this is where I use my grid paper. I know I say this every time, but hopefully you guys are listening. You want the grid paper. It not only protects your surface, helps you measure ribbon, center things on a card, it also, the lines help you line up your stamp. So if I put the word on the grid line so it lines up and then I set my stamp over it with those lined up to the grid line, then I'm straight. So that's a definite benefit. Because we're playing with olives, I'm going to use Old Olive ink. I'm going to go ahead and stamp that there. And then I'm going to use my triple banner punch to punch the end of it. And if you notice, this is only like 3/4 of an inch. And so it's really not going to fit in my little guides here because these are set at 1.5, and 2 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to look from the back. And so I can set this in here and I'm kind of not really going all the way down. I'm just kind of getting it to grip it. So when I know that I've got it where I want it, then I can go ahead and punch it out. And now I'm going to do the same with the one for under that. Line it up and punch. And that allows me to set these two on top of each other and have the border and still have the border on the end. So now all I need is a little bit of snail. And then this is going to go on my card later, but I want to just kind of eyeball it and see where I want it to go. And so I know I want it cut about here. And so I can either mark that with my fingernail or a little pencil. And then I'll come back in and just give it a little trim. The next stamp I'm going to do is going to be my little martini glass for on the front. Now if you notice, this set comes with a martini, a wine glass, and a champagne glass. And then it's actually got a little stamp that's meant to be the liquid that's inside. I'm actually even going to use these. This would be for the martini, the wine, and the champagne. This could be an orange slice, a lemon slice, there's some olives, some mint leaves, a little sprig. That could be a straw or maybe a peppermint. A strawberry would be great in the bottom of your champagne. This can be used for any number of things. It can be used, my first thought was New Year's because I'm looking at a holiday catalog, but it can also be weddings, it can be parties, it can be any kind of celebration or even just a friendly card, you know, to a friend. You can say, I'll drink to that with a couple of wine glasses, and that could be an everyday card. So it's not just a holiday set, which is one of the things I like about it. I like to get the most use out of my stamps. I want to be able to use them over and over again. And I know I can do that with this set. So like I said, this one's going to be the martini. So I'm going to take my martini glass and smoky slate. I've got a little piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. And then for the little, this has little olives and a stick that goes with it. And I wanted it in 2 colors. And luckily the 2 colors are kind of straight down the middle, so it was easy for me to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set it over my ink pad and only have that part touch it. So I only inked the stick when I did this. Then I'm going to bring in my other pad and I'm going to flip this around and I'm only going to do the olives. Now, if I wanted to be super picky, I could, you know, wipe off with a little rag the tiny little tip down there and maybe ink that with a marker. But for me, this was good enough. I don't think they're really going to criticize that I don't have the end of the stick the right color. Because I think once they start playing with it, they're not going to even notice. So now I have my two things together, and then I'm going to bring in my die, and that's where you're going to get a little confused. I'm going to help you out there. There are two dies. So I mean, I could have stamped them separately and cut them out separately, but I wanted to be able to lift it up and I wanted them to come together. So what I did is I took this die for the glass and I set it over the top. And then I brought in my Big Shot platform and I set it down, kind of lined it up where I wanted it. And then I took my top plate and I set it on top only so far. So I don't want the top of my die to actually touch the top plate because I want it to go through the machine and only cut the bottom half. Now I could fussy cut it, I could use my brother's scan and cut. I mean, there's lots of things that I could be doing with it, but this is a good thing to know that you can do, is bring it in and only partially die cut it. And so then I'm still going to have to fussy cut, but not nearly as much as if I would have had the whole thing. I'm going to give it kind of a rough thing just to get it out of here. Okay, so once I have the rough cut, then I can come back in and like fine tune how I'm cutting this. And you have to be careful, it is kind of skinny, so you want to make sure that you're not cutting it all the way off. Ask me how I know. We just want to make sure that we're giving it a little bit of a white border so that it has some stability and won't break off. So there's our Martini glass. Then all I need to do is color it with my Stampin' blends. Move these out of the way temporarily. I have a tendency to stick my elbows in those, so I want to get those off to the side. Anybody else do that? Stick your elbow in an ink pad? Or is that just me? Stampin' blends, I'm going to use the two colors of the olive. I could probably get away with just one, but I'm going to go ahead and do the two. That gives me the shading. And then where the two overlap, I'm making small circles, and that's what's going to give me my blend. And I'm doing this while it's still wet, and the fact that the ink is still wet is why it will blend easily. If you're coloring something large, like a large flower, and you have lots of little petals, then you want to be sure that you are coloring like maybe one petal and then waiting, you know, for doing the next color, so that you can still work with it while it's wet. So there's our little shaded olives. And then I'm going to take my red, this is the dark real red, and I'm just going to color right over it. Now again, I'm having to come out a little more than the stamped centers in order for the red to really show up, but there's our olives. Now for the background, that's done by Punch Art. I don't know if you guys are familiar. That's Punch Art, something that was really big several years ago, and I've been into Stampin' Up for, oh my gosh, almost 30 years. So I've seen lots of things come and go, and the funny thing about the things that go is they come back. So I'm just going to punch out quite a few of these olives. I'm using a 1-inch punch. There's olives, and then I want the center of it. Pimento? What do they call the middle of an olive? I know it has a name. Now, when I put these olives together, I'm going to try to make them random, because as olives float around in a glass or wherever they are, sometimes you only get part of it, sometimes you get all of it, sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes it's to a side. So I'm going to be kind of random as I place the red circles. I'm just putting one glue dot in the center of my 1/2-inch punch. Okay, so these ones that I let kind of hang over the edge, what I'm going to do is come in with my little paper snips and I'm going to snip off the edge. And it's easiest to do from the back side because you can see what's hanging over, and just give it a little snip. You see it, you can really tell how the red hangs over in the back and where it lines up. So then I'm just going to run the edge of my scissors along that. And if you notice, I don't really turn my scissors. I keep my hand where it's comfortable, and I turn the paper to match my scissors. So you just keep your scissors where they're comfortable, and then you rotate your paper. Okay, so now that I have a bunch of olives ready to go, I'm going to want to start placing them on my background. Now I can just place them all, you know, kind of randomly all over and have them all on the surface, but I'd like some of them to hang off the edge. To me, it just looks more natural if they're not all, I don't know, perfect. So maybe I want to have one of them come up in the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a straight edge, because that will be one side, and I'm going to turn it 45 degrees and do another one. So now I've got a 45-degree angle in my olive. Okay, so these ones I'm just going to butt up to the edge, and that's real easy. All I'm going to do is give it a straight edge to it, so I can just line it up to the side. And then once I've got them to where I think they're, you know, randomly placed all over, then I'm just going to stick them down. Now I can do that with glue dots. I can do it with liquid glue, you know, whatever you want to use. I'm going to use liquid glue because, like I said, it gives me my wiggle room I'm always talking about, that I want to be able to move it. It does dry very quickly, but it gives me like, I don't know, 30 seconds, 20 seconds to make sure that it's exactly where I want it to be. Because, I mean, even a 1/16 of an inch, if you're off, you can see the white edge, and I don't want to do that. Now, I'm trying to be random. As an accountant, random is not my forte. And I'm also covering up my little blips. I had some kind of mark on my card base. So we'll just pretend that's not there, and I'll cover it up, right? Okay, so once I have all of these down and lined up to the edge where I want them, then I can go ahead and attach my sentiment. I'm going to do this part flat, and then I'm going to do the glass with some dimensionals underneath. And this is where the mini dimensionals will come in handy. I've used the dimensionals for years and years and years and never had a problem cutting them in half. And I figured I don't need minis. That's kind of silly. I have no problems cutting. But it is so easy. It is so easy. They're already like pre-done for you. So all you have to do is pick them off and stick them where you want them. No cutting involved. So I make sure that I have both sizes on my desk at all times. Okay, with a little bit uneven surface under there, I'm going to use tear-in tape because it's a little thicker, a little stronger. I don't want this sentiment to come off. And I'm going to try to place it to where I can still see my reds out of my olives. So there's the front of our card. Now we just need to do the inside. I always do the insides of my card. It's kind of a issue I have. To me, the card's not finished until it's got an inside. Oh, and I also need to add the liquid to the outside. I'm almost done with the outside. So I'm just going to place a little something in the corner, and then I'm going to put my inside sentiment. That's pretty much my default when I'm doing my insides, is to have a little something that brings in the theme of the outside of the card, and then my inside sentiment. Now when I'm stamping the inside liquid for drinks, it's easy. I mean, a champagne, you can maybe do a light yellow. Wine, obviously a yellow or a red, a purple. I mean, those are really easy, but a martini, they're almost always clear, especially when they have olives in them. So my solution for that was to use a clear embossing powder. So let's see what I've got over here. Let's get some scrap paper. This is actually a gift certificate. I hope you guys know that you can contact me for gift certificates as the holidays start approaching and you want Stampin' Up products for Christmas, or, you know, whatever your holiday is, birthdays coming up. Let your friends and family know that they can contact me and get a gift certificate, or you can give me a wish list and then I can get it ordered for you and shipped direct. or I can ship it to me, wrap it, and then send it to you. That's an option too if they wish. So I'm just using a little bit of Versamark ink, and Versamark just stays sticky a little bit longer. And that allows me to take my clear embossing powder and put it over the top. Okay, now you may have been wondering, when I heated that up, I put heat from both sides, and that because when I started doing the front, it like warped a little bit, and I wanted it to even out. And so one of the ways you do that is you heat from both sides, because the reason it warps is one side of the paper is hotter than the other, and if you heat it evenly, then you're more likely to get a flat surface. So there's our liquid over the olives. I hope you can catch a little bit of the light on that, but it is shiny. So it looks like the glass has something in it. And then of course the envelopes are pre-done for you, because they come that way in the set. So here we have both of our cards. This one I actually did in, I believe it's Mossy Meadow, and this one's done in Old Olive. So that looks good in both. You could also decorate up the envelope if you wanted. You could take and, you know, stamp another martini glass over here, you know, maybe decorate up the back. You just want to make sure that it's not in the way of the postal service. They want to make sure that where the stamp, the return address in the middle, that's all clear to them. Decorating up the back is totally no big deal. So I hope you liked today's projects. So again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next Monday at 2:30. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm here to help. Thanks. Bye.